we had a great CPA, had the same CPA for 10 years or so. And if I'd ask a question, something I'd read or heard, and bring it to his attention, he'd say, "Oh, yeah, you can do that." But that's not strategic planning. That's not guidance. And so that one shift was the catalyst for the other pieces, that went into making the business.
This is the Money Seed Podcast, where we discuss all things investing, plain and simple, the way it should be. Please remember, this show is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be investment advice. Welcome back to the Money Seed Podcast. My guest today is Robin Binkley. Robin is a syndicator, a businesswoman, an entrepreneur. She's the co-founder of Real Equity Investment Partners. She is the co-author of a book called Next Level Your Life. And we're going to get into all of that. Robin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today and just share my journey,
Robin, I believe that you have many passions and hobbies, and one of them is to make a positive change in the world for busy professional women. Yes. Tell me a little bit more about your life journey and how you found that passion.
Yes. So my life journey, I'm in my mid-50s. Let me start by that so that you can get a framework for how I got to where I am. For 24 years, I ran nursing homes. So I was in healthcare administration. And so I was the administrator. And I got into that field right after college, essentially. And that's, so I was over the clinical operation and financial operation of a nursing entity. And so I learned a lot along the way. And what I learned is that outside of all the financial stuff and whatnot, is that it is 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And you make a great salary and you get bonuses and you're giving back and you're helping people. But it is life sucking and not life giving, And so about 5 years ago, I stepped out of that field, retired. I elected to not keep up my license anymore with that. I just want to say. And so simultaneously, my husband and I had been investing in real estate with our own money. We did the typical, bought a couple of single family homes. But we also did some larger projects and were able to partner and buy some commercial property, get into some self-storage facilities that we syndicated, but didn't really know we had syndicated. You kind of learn this.
And Robin, sorry, did you get into all these real estate investments while you were still working full-time?
Yes, I did. And it just, it's kind of, some, just who you're connecting with, who you're friends with. It's not like that was a set plan. Okay. That's just sort of interest, passion, love. But the story really for me is 5 years ago when I retired from healthcare administration. I had to figure out, what is my interest? What do I want to do? Take some time to really evaluate that. And I knew that we loved real estate. And I knew that if you're looking to build long-term wealth, real estate is a great way to do that. And it offers a lot of different strategies. It can offer passive income, some tax benefits. And so it's just, what's in your wheelhouse of what your wealth dreams and needs are. So having said that, we got plugged in a couple of years ago to the real estate guys. And that's with Robert Helms and Russell Gray, and learned about syndicating. And I had never even heard those terms, didn't know syndicating was raising capital, doing larger projects. I just had never heard the term before. So really my syndication journey has not been that long. And so I created a business with my husband Real Equity Investment Partners, where we had to figure out what's that business about. Yes, it's syndicating, but what is our mission and vision and our values? And what are we ultimately trying to achieve? And creating passive income, working towards generational wealth, creating legacy, and looking for strategies to offset taxes that work with whatever our scenario essentially was, and then translating that and opening that up to individuals and being able to share what projects we might be in and figuring out, helping someone figure out what works best for them. Because, every deal is not for everyone. It's what your financial needs are or someone else's financial dreams are completely different. And so a deal has to match the individual's needs. And so really being mature enough in ourselves to realize that, it's about the other people. It's not about us. And that is what has driven my business to where it is today. That very basic framework. But it's a journey. And, that takes a lot of different steps, and it takes making some mistakes. It takes doing some things well, all kind of wrapped up with a little bow,
So Robin, take us through your first syndication deal, because I think that's a big step, right? You have to find a deal. You got to be confident that you're running the numbers correctly. You have to gather the money, which means you have to sell this idea to investors and sell yourself to investors. How did you make it all work?
So I'm going to talk about that with a multifamily project that we were involved in just a year ago. It was a 200-door multifamily complex in Atlanta, Georgia. So it was a large property, and we had not been involved in multifamily and wanted to, and saw the value in the multiplication factor of X number of doors, the exit strategy. So what worked in that scenario, being very clear that we knew nothing about multifamily, we had to look at what can we offer to a team. And at that point in time, it was essentially a balance sheet. And so we found a team that we were able to connect with, who was an established team, who had a great track record, who already had, a management company in place that they had used in some other projects. And so we were able to come in as co-GPs and really mentorship, if you will, under them, and be a part of weekly calls, weekly decisions. We still are a part of that today. It's every Thursday, and it's great. And it's not been a perfect, if you will. I think anyone that gets into multifamily and dabbles in that arena, you're never buying a perfect property. Thankfully, the property that we got into, it was a Class B. It had been built in the 90s. There was very little deferred maintenance, a couple of staffing issues with like maintenance and people like that needed to be replaced. But all in all, a great project. And so that was the first real syndication, large syndication. And so then I thought, well, we know all these people. Raising capital is not going to be hard. Let me just say, raising capital is hard, especially when you're starting out and you don't have a data bank. You just know all these people, right? And you think, oh, I'll just call them. I'll tell them what I'm doing. And, they're going to be along for the ride. And that's not how it works. That's really not how it works. And so it's usually not your friends and family that jump in your first deal or maybe your second deal with you because they want to see proof of concept, and they know you from this past life, all the things that you did before, and they might know what you're interested in, but they don't see you through the lens of a syndicator, a capital raiser. And so I had to demonstrate to folks that we know, this is real. This is something we're sticking with. This is, a long range, and these projects work. And I had to create a database. I had to get out and network. I had to go attend events. I had to do something with the relationships, the new relationships, and really engage with folks and find out what their needs were. Without finding out the needs of the people you're connecting with, it's just that, it's a name. And people, I've found, do business with those that they trust and they like. And you have to build trust, which means you have to build relationship, and you have to do more than just speed date and pass a business card to someone at an event.
Absolutely. And I think to someone starting out, it can seem like a chicken or the egg type problem, right? Where you want to have the track record saying, look, I've been doing this for 5-10 years. I'm really good at it. I have all this experience. So invest with me. But at the same time, you can't get started without having the experience. So it's kind of hard to get that ball rolling. But it sounds like you were able to find a group of investors and you were able to get your first syndication deal going. What kind of syndication deals are you looking at currently?
Well, currently, right now, and I do not have a deal that I'm actually raising capital for, but what I am looking at are opportunities with self-storage, looking at car washes, and I'm looking at mobile home parks. Because I'm looking at the strength in assets where, when the economy is what it is right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty, I'm looking for asset classes that really do well in those scenarios. And so I'm doing a lot of analyzing. I'm talking to a number of syndicators that I've got great relationships with, and seeing what kind of collaborations we might be able to get involved in. Since the multifamily project, I was in another project, Bitcoin mining, with 2 other women, where we syndicated that project. That was just at the end of September, really. We closed that project in October. And so I'm in different asset classes, which is not everyone's cup of tea, but I like it because it's sort of, where does the money make the most sense? It's just my philosophy, my husband's philosophy. But it's given me the opportunity to connect. So this is a way that someone new getting into syndicating is partnering with people who are way smarter than you and have had tremendous success in that field. And so just like multifamily, I've partnered with 2 other women who have tremendous success in digital currency and the blockchain. And that's not my strength. But I have learned a lot, and I can capital raise, and, it helps, collaborations help close the gap, if you will, or collapse timeframes. It just collapses timeframes.
And Robin, it sounds like you've had a chance to invest in all kinds of different business ventures. I'm surprised to hear that. Yes. Yeah, I mean, you got car washes and Bitcoin and real estate and self-storage. Tell me more about, how do you evaluate these businesses? These are very different. Someone comes to you with an idea saying, hey, I got this new Bitcoin idea. How do you actually try to evaluate it and see if it makes sense?
So let me go back to just mentioning, I really work with people who are much smarter than myself, because I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the answers. I seek counsel with my CPA and my legal team. So when I'm looking at any deal, it doesn't matter what the deal is that's coming into my wheelhouse to be a part of a syndication. I look at, where does that fit in my asset mapping for my entire business line. And so this is something that I share with individuals that I'm talking with, mentoring, coaching, and that, it's no different for me than what we're going to discuss together, you and I. Where are you with your financial goals? Where does the deal fit into that, into entity structures? What is it going to provide you? And so it's important to align those things with your personal wealth strategy. And so that's one of the first things that I do, And then secondly, I'm always looking at who's a part of that team, because who's on that team, it's like a marriage. It's a family. You're in that relationship for a good window of time, for the bad and the good. And there will always be something uncomfortable that comes up. I have not really met with anyone who's been super successful, mid-success, whatever, who hasn't had a situation or a group that they've worked with where it's always been perfect. And sometimes it's just you maybe your investments aren't paying out the way that you had proposed that to your investors, and you have to deliver bad news. That's uncomfortable for everyone. How do you do that? That builds trust. You face the elephant in the room and you pivot, and so I feel like I'm kind of moving all over the place with that. But the team and who you're working with is critical, because you might be in a deal where your exit strategy isn't for 5 to 7 years. You have to work with these people, and then you have to present a united front to your investor team. And so it's very important, who you're working with. And then you want to look at, always I do, what's the exit strategy? How does this work for me? Is this something that's going to have infinite returns? Are we looking to buy and hold? Is it something that we're going to flip out of and then we're going to move those dollars into something else? So I think that's really critical. And then how does it play out from a tax standpoint? What are some of those ramifications for the investments? And then certainly you want to look at cash flow, and if what's on the pro forma that's being presented to you and you're evaluating, is that real? So you kind of have to take some deeper dives into those things. So it's a lot of different things, but I probably look at a deal a little bit differently maybe than someone else looking at the deal, because I'm always looking at, where does it fit? Where does that fit in my wheelhouse? And it may be a great deal, but it doesn't fit in my wheelhouse, and I will pass. I've probably said more no's this year than I've said yes.
And Robin, the one about the Bitcoin, right, where you partnered up with the 2 other women doing the Bitcoin mining, did you find that deal, or did that deal find you?
That deal found me, and how that deal found me is probably critical to talk about, because who you hang out with, who you are aligning yourself with, what groups you are in, dictate the trajectory that you're going to take. And so if you are encircled with people who are like-minded like yourself, and deals are flowing, it's part of a real estate or syndications or entrepreneurial groups, deals are there. And they can be a myriad of different styles, just like the Bitcoining. I wouldn't have thought that I would have gotten into that. But that deal found me by connection of a women's group that I was in, a women's mastermind. Mm-hmm.
And Robin, what advice would you have for, let's talk about women specifically. If there is a woman, she's in her mid-40s, maybe mid-50s, she has significant savings and she's looking to actively invest her money. She's looking to find an investor or a syndicator or partner up with somebody. How would they go about finding such an individual? You mentioned that you, for example, joined that mastermind group, which I think is a good idea, but what other advice would you have for that individual?
So I would say a couple of things. And I'm going to write as we talk so that I don't get all over the map with us on this answer here, because it's really pretty layered. First of all, I wouldn't let my money burn a hole in my pocket. Just because I've got some money doesn't mean that I need to run out and just go throw it into a deal. Again, I would take a step back and I would have some understanding of, do you have a balance sheet? Do you have our personal financial statement? Do you understand where you are and where you're going? So the personal financial statement is real important. It's important for anybody who's in their 20s, the 30s, the 40s, 50s, and on, men and women alike. Because without that, you don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going. And in between the where you are and where you're going is where you craft your wealth journey, And so get a grip on that, have an understanding of that. And, that encompasses all levels of debt, all levels of assets, all levels of, the stock market, precious metals, all kinds of stuff that you've got. That's where that goes. And then I would ensure, secondly, that I had set some goals. I'm not talking about New Year's resolutions. I'm talking about some goals. What is it that you're trying to achieve? And those goals have to be tangible. They have to be big, hairy, audacious goals, yes, but they also have to be realistic and they need time frames. And so, for example, are you trying to create passive income that surpasses your W-2 income so that you're no longer tied to a traditional W-2 job, that you can live a laptop lifestyle where your investments are going into your account and you can live and play and do whatever it is that you want to do? And so there's a strategy with that. And so, again, a CPA being involved in a lot of that discussion, but that wealth strategy is real important for yourself personally, with your partner with you, come together, kind of talk about that. And then you need to begin getting some education. There's a lot of education out there just by way of podcast, understand the macroeconomics that are happening in the world, entertaining different styles of asset classes for investments, and attending things in person. There's a lot of local meetups, whether I'm in Houston, you're on the West Coast, it doesn't matter if you're in Omaha, Nebraska, making that up. You just Google what's out there and around, for some connections. And then I would evaluate opportunities that come my way. And by that, I mean, again, let's talk about the team. Let's talk about the exit strategy. Let's look at what the deal really offers, and how does that fit in your schematic, because again, you might be looking at, let me get into some carbon scrubbers, but really, I don't need any more depreciation. What I need some passive income. So you kind of have to look at what does the asset offer and how does that affect your finances? And then the last thing I would say is, and I talk about this a lot on some educational snippets that I put out there, having collaborative meetings with your CPA, your accountant, if you have a separate accountant, and your legal team collaboratively, at least quarterly, if not monthly. But quarterly is a really good place to be, because right now we are entering almost the second quarter. We're about to be finishing the second quarter of the year. Yesterday was tax day. We're hitting May. We've got 7 more months to impact this year. And I talked about that on a recording that I did earlier. And so it's not too late to set up a collaborative meeting. And that might be something people are uncomfortable with, haven't done. Just get on the phone with your CPA and just say, hey, do you do this? And if they don't, they're probably the wrong CPA. Again, looking for a different CPA, but still ask the question, set something up, and how can we look at your big overall picture? Include a financial advisor. If you've got stocks and whatnot, whatever, include your financial advisor too in that powwow, and kind of look at, okay, this is where I am. This is where I'm trying to go. What kind of investments might be best for me before the end of the year? Like, do I need to get into some agriculture? Do I need to buy, do I need to buy a ranch? Does it suit me to buy an international investment? Is this car wash that I'm looking at being a passive investor in, or is this going to help me on my taxes? And so those are things that are tangible that anybody can do. Anybody can do that. those things that I've listed.
Yeah, very well said. And I have to agree that most people I speak with, they have the similar type of answer to that question. And one of the recurring themes is surround yourself with like-minded people and seek out experts, right?
Absolutely.
Experts being like, whether it's a specific field like an accountant or a lawyer or a financial planner, or in general, people who've invested in similar type businesses before, et cetera. But no, that's exactly how it is. It's very difficult to, on the one hand, it's very easy for individuals to educate themselves today, right? Because YouTube, podcasts, books, et cetera, the information's out there. So I would say consume all that information, but then go speak to a professional like a financial planner, accountant, et cetera, to really answer all those questions that you're not sure about, right?
So the CPA, because I kind of go on and on and on about that, I will tell you that was one of the very first things that we did. Before we created the LLC for our syndication business, Real Equity Investment Partners, we had a great CPA, had the same CPA for 10 years or so. And if I'd ask a question, something I'd read or heard, and bring it to his attention, he'd say, oh yeah, you can do that. But that's not strategic planning. That's not guidance. And so that one shift was the catalyst for the other pieces, that went into making the business. So I'm just speaking what I've lived, and I can tell you how foundational that one decision was.
Yeah, and I always tell this to people is, if you are talking to someone and you're paying for their time, like a supposed expert, and let's say they are an expert, doctor, lawyer, accountant, CPA, and they're not telling you what to do, they're just outlining options, they're probably not doing their job, right? Because it's very easy for, let's say, a doctor. You ask a doctor, hey, I got this issue, what should I do? And the doctor says, well, you can do this. Well, you can do that. Oh, and you can also do this other thing. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of, they're pushing that information back on me, and they're kind of forcing me to make that decision, because then I'm the one that's responsible, right? Not them. So that's how they shield themselves from, whether it's a potential lawsuit in the future or give them bad advice or whatever, is they don't really give you advice. They just give you some options and say, hey, you can do what you want. And I always say, no, press them to tell you what they think you should do, right? Yeah. It's like, I know I got options. I know I can do these 10 things, but which of these 10 things should I do? And press them on it.
And so with that, let me just add that I think that what I've experienced is, if you're able to then set up another reoccurring meeting, if you're only able to meet quarterly, that's fine. But if you're meeting here in April, you need to have another strategic meeting in July, and you need to have another strategic meeting in October, because by the time October hits, you are at the end of the year, and your CPA will have a well-rounded picture of where you are. And if there are some last-minute investments that you need to get into, you know what you're looking for, So I just would encourage folks, more than anything, the personal financial statement and the CPA. If you can make those things happen this year, or tweak that a little bit and have collaborative meetings. Maybe you've got the right CPA. You're just not having collaborative meetings with all the pieces. Because we're living in different economic times, than we were just 6-8 months ago, and so it's ever more important to aid you in figuring out the path and where you're going.
Absolutely. Robin, let's take it a little bit back to your personal journey, because I'm always fascinated by the decision-making and the risk management associated with quitting a full-time job and then kind of taking the entrepreneur route, the full-time entrepreneur route. And it sounds like you had a full-time job. I think you mentioned you were working for over 24 years and you were W-2. Yep. Tell us a little bit more. What did that decision-making look like on a personal level, saying yes? Because people can get very comfortable receiving that paycheck week after week. It's security. Yes. It's there.
My life was based on it.
You don't have to stress that much. Your evenings and weekends are free. At what point how did you get to that stage where you could tell yourself, look, I'm confident, I know what I'm doing, I'm financially secure, and yes, I can quit the W-2 job and pursue my passions full time?
Well, I would love to say that I had all of those feelings of certainty before, but what I knew is I was completely burnt out, And I absolutely didn't even have the time to sit. If you had asked me, what's your favorite color? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I like all colors. What do you want to eat? I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. I'm open for anything. It's like I couldn't even take the time to do some introspection on myself and figure out, what do I really like? Who am I really now? And so I had to really look at my mental sanity, if you will. And my situation was a little bit different in that I was married, same person. Or I'm just going to give a shout out, 30 years in the next couple of weeks. I've been married that long. So I was married. And so though our financial resources were going to be different, there was some uncertainty there, what's going to happen if, and I just kind of had to step back and go, life is too short. Our days are numbered. I'm falling apart and I need to just take some time for me and figure it out. That was really my decision for quitting resigning. I shouldn't use quitting my job, but resigning. It wasn't because I'm ready to go build my real estate business. That came after, even though we had been involved in investments. But I will tell you, it was the best decision I ever made. And so how does someone who is currently in a W-2 position, who is truly, absolutely bills, making our due, and you're dependent on this and you don't have enough coming in from passive investing, or you don't have enough coming in from a syndicated deal, how do you make that transition? And so there is a lot of double duty that has to take place. And I think probably the biggest conversation that I get into with folks who are in that position is stepping out and making connections and building your database and building relationships with other like-minded people. It sounds cliche, but they're wanting to get involved in a project too. Well, what do you have to offer? You may not have financial resources, but what is your skill? Maybe you can go find the deal. Maybe you can manage the deal. Maybe you can do the due diligence. And maybe you can, do some of these other things so that you can get into some projects. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it has taken me 20 some odd years to be where I am today because of life experience. But my timeframes have been collapsed over the last 2 because I've been surrounding myself with exactly what we're talking about. I've been surrounding myself in education, people who are way smarter than me. I'm in mastermind groups. I do travel to some of these educational events, and not everyone has the resources to do that. But there's a lot of resources online where if travel is not something that's in your wheelhouse, you can do education online. And then you've got to get out in the community, though, because you have to do more than just let's have a Zoom relationship connection. You've got to touch people. I still believe strongly in the relationship.
Absolutely. And Robin, tell me a little bit more. What are some of the unique challenges or difficulties that you face in this space, in the investor, syndication, entrepreneur space as a woman?
Well, I would say as a woman, you can look at it 2 ways. There's not that many women in this space. So I would say the percentage of women to men when I go to these events, it's probably 75% men, 25% women, on average. I might be off, but, just visually looking around, that's what you see. And so just go and put yourself in the space, put yourself out there, show up. Showing up is 9/10 of it. And show up repeatedly, and people get used to seeing you and understanding what it is that you're trying to do. But, I would say a lot of women like myself, my husband really took the spearhead on our investing for many, many years up until here recently. Now we work collaboratively on it, or I make decisions myself. But I had to understand, I had to take the time and spend the energy to educate myself, to understand what was happening around me, understanding what's happening in the world today. And that takes letting go of some things that you really enjoy and are good to kind of usher in the great. You have to, like, instead of watching that Netflix show, watch podcasts, dive into what's happening from a macroeconomic standpoint, and then wrap your mind about, like, what do all these words and terms mean? Understand your own personal financial statement. And so I've had to say no to going out and going away on some weekends because I was at an educational event, which is not a vacation. It's, you come home exhausted because and energized at the same time, because it's great content, but then you got to come home and make application. And so I've just made that commitment. And that's really the commitment everybody's got to make. It's to what level are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want? It's a life of design. What are you willing to, to let go of so that you can have something more? And what's your reason? My reason is for generational wealth, monies and finances that go beyond me, leaving legacy.
Yeah. Actually, Robin, that was going to be one of my follow-on questions. Yeah. Is what does the phrase generational wealth mean to you?
So for me, generational wealth in my wheelhouse is money that goes into perpetuity beyond my immediate adult children. I have grandchildren now, and beyond them. And supporting, we have a trust, and, supporting causes that really matter in our family office, and engaging my adult children in our business. And, that's been a journey in and of itself right there, because they're not all ready to run out and do real estate investing, but they are interested in short-term rentals. They are interested in dealing with social media that has to deal with our business. They are interested in looking at brokering, deals and such. And so you kind of have to figure out what that looks like in your life. And then legacy. I love legacy at this stage of the game because it's really giving back, give more than you receive. And when you live your life that way, you get everything that you want. And so I love helping people, not just my own immediate family, but those around me. I love sharing a snippet on maybe what I can see from a 30,000 foot view to kind of guide someone. And so that brings me a lot of joy, and I love seeing those results.
That's probably one of the most comprehensive answers I've ever received to that question.
Well, I didn't even come up for air, did I?
No, but it was really good. It was really good. Robin,
yes.
Tell us about your book, Next Level Your Life. It's available on Amazon. We'll put the link in the show notes. What was the story behind the book, and what can people learn from the book?
Okay, so I'm going to show you this amazing book I had the opportunity to be in. And so this is a book that Kyle Wilson puts together with entrepreneurs, social media influencers, individuals who are just very famous in their own right, in their own business. And so I had an opportunity. I was referred to write a chapter in that book, but I have to tell you, it was probably one of the most transformative things that I had to do, was to sit and write my story. And so I wrote my story and sent it into the editor. And I'm going to share this because I got sent back and they said, this is really not at all what we're looking for. I need you to kind of hit restart. And I was like, oh my God, what do you mean? And at the same time, I had never written anything before, not really, not something that someone's going to pick up and read. And so it was like, okay, I need to dig into myself and really find the essence of like, what inspires me, what moves me, why am I here and now? And once I kind of got into that groove, I was able to just put my story together better, because my story really doesn't change. It's just how you deliver it, you know? And so anyway, I was able to be a part of this, but this has been fantastic because, you know, this book is like #1 in over 31 categories. It's hit international #1s. And there is a story in here, whether it's me or someone else, that will resonate with you at a certain season of your life. And so I think that there's so much encouragement from a book where you've got, you know, a handful of writers in it. So it's a powerful book. Yeah.
Robin, right now, you mentioned earlier on the call that you are in your mid-50s.
Yes. Yes.
What are some of your goals and aspirations for the next, say, 10 or 20 years?
Well, health and wellness is the first one. Okay. And so that is certainly wealth to me. And so what I'm putting in allows me to generate and put out. So I'm saying no to a lot of things, if you will, and saying yes to some other things. So sleep is one, exercise is another. And I'm not, you know, lean and mean like I was in my 20s. And that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for wellness. And over, you know, you said the next, what did you, how many years did you ask me? 20 years?
I just put 10 or 20, but I guess maybe a more general question is, yeah, what are your goals? What keeps you going? Yeah.
Well, certainly creating legacy. And I've found myself getting into a space where I've been creating more educational content. And really putting that information out for others to seek value in. And so I see myself doing a lot more of that, and just being present, like showing up, but being present, and not just like my body, but my mind, really engaging with folks and listening more. I know that sounds so simple, but I think when you can do that, you have a lot of opportunities that just naturally open up before you. And I'm seeing that happen for me, meaning that I'm translating that into different business lines and business opportunities by just showing up and being present and listening. I'm, you know, collaborating with a couple of women on a women's retreat that we're setting up here towards the end of the year. I'm collaborating on another book, some speaking engagements. And so these are some things that are just kind of naturally occurring. And so I see myself doing more of that and just enjoying the people around me. You know, you probably want to hear, you know, maybe, you know, having X number of money all the month and blah, blah. And that's not wealth to me. I mean, I've created that. I'm doing that. I'm going to nurture that. But now I want to help steer others into how they can really do that. And that is such satisfaction for me. And so I'd love to do that for the rest of my life, really, however long that is.
And Robin, as we move toward wrapping up this interview, where can people reach out to you? I'm sure you've inspired and continue to inspire women as well as like everyone in general. I think your story is fantastic. How can people find you?
So very simply, team@realequityip.com. And it is a general email, but it will get steered my direction by my team.
Fantastic. We'll put that into the show notes. Robin, thank you very much for spending time with us today. I'm inspired by your story, and thanks very much for joining us.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I just love the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Thanks very much.